She wasn't a mafia boss. She wasn't a Wall Street banker. She was a middle-aged woman in a wheelchair, her face half hidden behind a white veil. And yet, she pulled off one of the largest crypto frauds in modern history. Between 2014 and 2017, she convinced more than 130,000 people to hand over their savings. In 3 short years, more than $7 billion disappeared. But here's the twist. Instead of wiring the money offshore, instead of hiding it in Swiss accounts, she converted it into Bitcoin. 61,000 Bitcoins. Back when each coin was barely worth $1,000. Today, that hoard is valued at more than 7 billion. Her name is Qian Zhimin. To her followers, she was flower. No gang behind her. No syndicate. She built everything with theater, charisma, and a promise: give me 3 years, and I'll give you 3 lifetimes of wealth. It began with a company in Tianjin, China, called Blue Sky Green Tech. On paper, it claimed to do 3 things: environmental projects, elderly care technology, and Bitcoin mining. In reality, only the Bitcoin mattered. At flashy hotel roadshows, they promised 100% to 300% returns. They played loud music, filled the stage with futuristic products, anti-smog masks, so-called AI bracelets. Elderly investors were handed goodie bags and contracts on the way out. And then came the dramatic entrance. She rolled in, a heavy woman, seated in a wheelchair, face covered with a veil. The crowd erupted. Some literally lifted her, chair and all, high above their heads like she was a goddess. She spoke just one line: "I promise you 3 lifetimes of wealth." The room exploded. Early investors got paid, feeding the frenzy. Her disability became part of the myth, proof she was destined, maybe even chosen. They called her the female Buffett. But behind the myth, she was quietly stockpiling Bitcoin. Her company built so-called mining farms, rows of machines humming and blinking. Investors toured, took photos, signed contracts. But later, police found many of those rigs were outdated or didn't even work. They were theater. Meanwhile, the real money flowed into crypto wallets. By 2017, as Bitcoin surged, her stash ballooned. But authorities were closing in. That same year, China launched a crackdown on illegal fundraising and banned crypto exchanges. Qian vanished just 2 months before the hammer fell. First Laos. Then Singapore. Then St. Kitts and Nevis, a tiny Caribbean country where she bought a passport under a new name, Zhang Yadi. Back in China, the empire collapsed. Police raided offices. One scapegoat, a young gamer friend named Ren Jiangtao, was left holding the bag. He'd been promised a salary and a bonus, but instead he was arrested. Another associate, Wu Xiaolong, was also detained. That's when Qian decided to do something extraordinary, straight out of a movie. She still had access to company funds. Even though Blue Sky Green Tech had been shut down, accounts were somehow still moving money. Qian arranged for nearly $15 million to be transferred to a middleman named Huo Zhen, a local party secretary. The goal? Buy off the police task force, codenamed Project 818. Here's how it went down. First, $5 million was quietly wired into Huo's wife's bank account. The next $10 million was withdrawn in cash. Stacks of notes were packed into the trunk of a car. Huo drove north to meet the lead investigator, Zhang Lai, the deputy bureau chief in charge of the case. They parked near a public park. Zhang climbed into the driver's seat, took the wheel, and drove away, leaving Huo standing on the curb. Minutes later, another car appeared. The trunk opened. Bags of cash were transferred smoothly into the second vehicle. Zhang then circled back, returned the first car, and picked up Huo as if nothing had happened. The whole handoff was clean, efficient, wordless. It was like a gangster film, except it was real. Days later, Wu Xiaolong, the detained associate, was suddenly released on bail. Official paperwork claimed his confession was incomplete, his charges unclear. But everyone inside knew why. $15 million had just greased the system. For a brief moment, It looked like Qian could actually bend the law to her will. But the protection didn't last. Within months, the bribery was exposed. Wu was rearrested. Guo and Zhang themselves were investigated. The scandal of Project 818 became an embarrassment for Chinese authorities. By then, Qian was far away, living in London, her bitcoins untouched. She shopped online, gamed for hours, and stayed hidden. Disabled and unable to speak English, she needed helpers. She found one, Jen Wen, a struggling waitress turned luxury assistant. Overnight, Wen's life transformed. Private schools for her son. A Hampstead mansion, rent paid 6 months upfront. Shopping bags filled with designer brands. Together, they even tried to buy a £23 million London mansion, with Bitcoin. That attempt set off alarms. In 2018, Wen was arrested on suspicion of money laundering. Investigators traced the wallets back to Qian. For years she dodged capture, but crypto trails never fade. Finally, in September 2025, at London's Southwark Crown Court, the woman once raised like a goddess appeared in silence before a judge. No veil. No stage. No worshippers. She pleaded guilty to 2 counts of money laundering. Prosecutors called it one of the largest crypto seizures in world history. 61,000 bitcoins, worth over $7 billion. But the bigger question isn't her sentence, it's what happens to the money. In the UK, if victims can't prove ownership, seized assets can be split between the Treasury and police under the Asset Recovery Incentive Scheme. That means tens of thousands of Chinese victims may never see a cent of their life savings. Think about the irony. She ran a Ponzi scheme, used the money to buy Bitcoin, and instead of collapsing, her stash multiplied. The longer the case dragged on, the richer the treasure became. So what do you think? Should the 7 billion go back to the victims, even if many paid in cash with no paperwork? Should the UK claim it under law? Or should it be split? And what about Qian herself, life in prison? 20 years? More? This isn't just a crime story. It's a mirror of human greed, blind faith, and the strange power of cryptocurrency. If you were the judge, what would your verdict be? Who gets the 61,000 bitcoins? And how many years should she serve? Drop your answers in the comments. I'll pin the best one and update you when the final verdict comes down. This is InfoDive. Subscribe now, because the next global mystery is already unfolding.